Screens. Actually, hold on. Platitude is the word of the day. Everyone say it for me. Platitude. Platitude. Now, we're doing platitude for two reasons. Number one, this is a real-life word, kind of like euphemism. There's lots of oxymoron. There's lots of real-life words I've taught you that also apply to creative writing. Plus, platitudes are a trick you can use in creative writing, and they're a real-life trick, and a video that I have to go along with platitude today also functions as our pep talk. So this does three things all at once. So platitudes are pieces of advice, but they're really cliche. They're very stereotypical pieces of advice. They're not very meaningful. So breakup platitudes are very common. Let's say you broke up with a significant other and you tell your friends will probably, without even knowing that they're saying a platitude, will probably respond with something like, "Oh man, that stinks, but there's plenty of other fish in the sea." That's a platitude. It's a piece of advice that's not all that meaningful. Or, time is going to heal all those wounds. That's a very common platitude. You can do so much better than them. You're so much better off without them. All of those are pieces of advice. They're these little sayings that really are not very helpful because they're just insincere. So we actually have an antonym today. We hardly ever do. But the opposite of a platitude is sincerity. If someone's really being sincere when they say something like, "Have a nice day," then that is sincerity. But usually people just say sincerity. It's like such an automatic motto. See that synonym? These are these sayings that are so automatic that they're just not very meaningful, like "have a nice day," right? Most people say it like that. They don't really mean it. So platitudes, there's tons of them. I think the easiest way to get used to them is just seeing a lot of examples. So I've got some more examples for you today. So the first thing, this is kind of a nerdy just side note, but the prefix plat literally means flat. So like you could have a plateau. It's a mountain that's flat, right? Same with a platitude. It's a saying that falls flat. It's not very meaningful. So let's look at some more examples. Good things come to those who wait. That's not all that meaningful. Forgive and forget. Great minds think alike. Money can't buy you happiness. That's a really common platitude. Little sayings, not all that helpful. They're just these cliche, not very sincere little quotes. Let me show you a giant list of platitudes. If I were you, I would look at these because you could steal one of them for your You Try box in a minute. So I'm going to read some of them, but not all of them. Just give it time. You'll get over it. It wasn't meant to be. Patience is a virtue. That's a very popular platitude. This too shall pass. None of these actually make a big difference, right? None of these will actually really help people, but we don't know what else to say, right? You're going to get through it. Don't let it eat at you. Nothing is impossible. Just look on the bright side. So little sayings that are just kind of insincere. Don't let life get you down. Everything's going to be okay. Everything happens for a reason. Our thoughts and prayers go with you, right? That's a very common platitude that kind of bothers some people because it doesn't actually make anyone feel better. It's just something to say when you don't know what else to say. You're making a mountain out of a molehill. So, the reason I think platitudes can be, it's not a huge creative writing trick, right? This is a small thing. But as a creative writer, if I have a character who's supposed to be a background character, who's not supposed to have a big personality, I could purposefully make that character speak in a lot of platitudes to show in a subtle way, this character doesn't have a lot going on. They're kind of a flat character, right? They don't have an interesting personality. And so that's how I would use platitudes as a creative writer. But like I said, the other thing that we're doing today is platitude is also, I've got this really, really awesome video I get to show you. It's my favorite video I ever get to show any of my classes. So I need to explain it really quick. It also doubles as our pep talk, like I said, plus it has a moment where it talks about platitudes. Dylan, screen for me, bud. So this was a graduation speech, is what this actually is. It was by a really famous writer who has since passed away. His name was David Foster Wallace. David Foster Wallace is famous for writing the longest novel ever, which I read and I regret. It was not worth it, but he's famous for it. He spoke at an Ivy League university. He gave their graduation speech for people who are graduating college, and it went so viral that a production company made this video to go along with his speech. So you're going to be hearing like an audience clapping, and it will sound like it's someone giving a speech like in a giant auditorium, because it is. But they made video to go along with what he's saying. So the thing I love about this video is it's good advice for someone trying to do something really tough, like NaNoWriMo. But it's also really good real life advice. So I hope that you will actually try and pay attention. I'm going to be totally honest. When I watched this video, it truly actually changed my life. That sounds like a very corny thing to say. But Miss Timothy showed me, she's 8th grade science, she showed me this video. She shared it with me like probably 12 years ago. And it literally did. Like, it actually changed my life. So I'm not saying it's going to for all of you. But I hope that you will give it a chance and actually try and pay attention. There are 2 really minor swear words. I'm going to mute when they happen. Otherwise, here we go.
There are these 2 young fish swimming along, and they happen to meet an older fish swimming the other way, who nods at them and says, "Morning, boys, how's the water?" And the 2 young fish swim on for a bit, and then eventually one of them looks over at the other and goes, "What the hell is water?"
Now, that's a metaphor, and you'll see why that's a metaphor later, but he talks about that more in his speech. So don't worry if that went over your head.
The point of the fish story is merely that the most obvious, important realities are often the ones that are hardest to see and talk about. Stated as an English sentence, of course, this is just a banal platitude. But the fact is that in the day-to-day trenches of adult existence, banal platitudes can have a life or death importance. The plain fact is that you graduating seniors do not yet have any clue what day in, day out really means. There happen to be whole, large parts of adult American life that nobody talks about in commencement speeches. One such part involves boredom, routine, and petty frustration. The parents and older folks here will know all too well what I'm talking about. By way of example, let's say it's an average adult day, and you get up in the morning, go to your challenging white-collar college graduate job, and you work hard for 8 or 10 hours, and at the end of the day you're tired and somewhat stressed, and all you want is to go home and have a good supper and maybe unwind for an hour and then hit the sack early, because of course you have to get up the next day and do it all again. But then you remember there's no food at home. You haven't had time to shop this week because of your challenging job. And so now, after work, you have to get in your car and drive to the supermarket.
So, I want to point something out here. He is talking about things that you will more experience when you're an adult. But I'm going to encourage you to consider that he's talking about things that become repetitive. Like school. School becomes really repetitive this time of year. Winter is always the hardest time of year for students. There's something called the winter slump, that you're just kind of sick of school and summer is too far away and it can feel a little hopeless. Same with something like NaNoWriMo. When we're on day 8, we've been doing something that's really tough, really challenging, and really repetitive. I hope that that's what you will think about when he's talking about these things. Think about your experience of repetitive, kind of annoying stuff instead, okay?
It's the end of a workday, and the traffic is apt to be very bad. So getting to the store takes way longer than it should. And when you finally get there, the supermarket is very crowded, because of course it's the time of day when all the other people with jobs also try to squeeze in some grocery shopping. But you can't just get in and quickly out. You have to wander all over the huge, overlit store's confusing aisles to find the stuff you want. And you have to maneuver your junky cart through all these other tired, hurried people with carts, etc., cutting stuff out because it's a long ceremony. And eventually, you get all your supper supplies, except now it turns out there aren't enough checkout lanes open, even though it's the end of the day rush. So the checkout line is incredibly long, which is stupid and infuriating, but you can't take your frustration out on the frantic lady working the register, who is overworked at a job whose daily tedium and meaninglessness surpasses the imagination of any of us here at a prestigious college. But anyway, you finally get to the checkout line's front, and you pay for your food, and get told to have a nice day, in a voice that is the absolute voice of death. And then you have to take your creepy...
Did you hear our platitudes? So there's little moments of platitudes in this video, along with it being our pep talk, and you'll see.
see plastic bags of groceries in your cart with the one crazy wheel that pulls maddeningly to the left, all the way out through the crowded, bumpy, littery parking lot, and then you have to drive all the way home through slow, heavy, SUV-intensive rush hour traffic, etc., etc. Everyone here has done this, of course, but it hasn't yet been part of you graduates' actual life routine, day after week, after month, after year. But it will be. And many more dreary, annoying, seemingly meaningless routines besides. But that is not the point. The point is that petty, frustrating crap like this is exactly where the work of choosing is going to come in. Because the traffic jams and crowded aisles and long checkout lines give me time to think.
Or hallways that are too crazy, never-ending tests, never-ending homework, never-ending assignments, right? Be thinking about your own experience. Yeah.
And if I don't make a conscious decision about how to think and what to pay attention to, I'm going to be pissed and miserable every time I have to shop. Because my natural default setting is the certainty that situations like this are really all about me. About my hungriness and my fatigue and my desire to just get home. And it's going to seem for all the world like everybody else is just in my way. And who are all these people in my way? And look at how repulsive most of them are, and how stupid and cow-like and dead-eyed and non-human they seem in the checkout line. Or at how annoying and rude it is that people are talking loudly on cell phones in the middle of the line. And look at how deeply, personally unfair this is. If I choose to think this way in the store and on the freeway, fine. Lots of us do. Except thinking this way tends to be so easy and automatic that it doesn't have to be a choice. It is my natural default setting. It's the automatic way that I experience the boring, frustrating, crowded parts of adult life when I'm operating on the automatic, unconscious belief that I am the center of the world and that my immediate needs and feelings are what should determine the world's priorities. The thing is that, of course, there are totally different ways to think about these kinds of situations. In this traffic, all these vehicles stuck and idling in my way, it's not impossible that some of these people in SUVs have been in horrible auto accidents in the past and now find driving so terrifying that their therapist has all but ordered them to get a huge, heavy SUV so they can feel safe enough to drive. Or I can choose to force myself to consider the likelihood that everyone else in the supermarket's checkout line is just as bored and frustrated as I am, and that some of these people probably have much harder, more tedious or painful lives than I do. Again, please don't think I'm giving you moral advice, or that I'm saying you're supposed to think this way, or that anyone expects you to just automatically do it, because it's hard. It takes will and effort, and if you are like me, some days you won't be able to do it, or you just flat out won't want to. But most days, if you're aware enough to give yourself a choice, you can choose to look differently at this fat, dead-eyed, over-made-up lady who just screamed at her kid in the checkout line. Maybe she's not usually like this. Maybe she's been up 3 straight nights holding the hand of her husband who's dying of bone cancer. Or maybe this very lady is the low-wage clerk at the motor vehicles department who just yesterday helped your spouse resolve a horrific, infuriating red tape problem through some small act of bureaucratic kindness. Of course, none of this is likely, but it's also not impossible. It just depends what you want to consider. If you're automatically sure that you know what reality is and who and what is really important, if you want to operate on your default setting, then you, like me, probably won't consider possibilities that aren't annoying and miserable. But if you've really learned how to think, how to pay attention, then you will know you have other options. It will actually be within your power to experience a crowded, hot, slow, consumer hell-type situation as not only meaningful, but sacred, on fire with the same force that lit the stars. Love, fellowship, the mystical oneness of all things deep down. Not that that mystical stuff's necessarily true. The only thing that's capital T true is that you get to decide how you're going to try to see it. This, I submit, is the freedom of real education, of learning how to be well-adjusted. You get to consciously decide what has meaning and what doesn't. That is real freedom. That is being educated and understanding how to think. The alternative is unconsciousness, the default setting, the rat race. the constant gnawing sense of having had and lost some infinite thing.
There's our platitude again.
I know that this stuff probably doesn't sound fun and breezy or grandly inspirational the way a commencement speech is supposed to sound. What it is, as far as I can see, is the capital T truth with a whole lot of rhetorical niceties stripped away. You are, of course, free to think of it whatever you wish. But please don't just dismiss it as some finger-wagging Dr. Laura sermon. None of this stuff is really about morality or religion or dogma or big fancy questions of life after death. The capital T truth is about life before death. It is about the real value of a real education, which has almost nothing to do with knowledge and everything to do with simple awareness. Awareness of what is so real and essential, so hidden in plain sight all around us all the time, that we have to keep reminding ourselves over and over, this is water. This is water.
So, what he really is talking about here is having perspective. We're surrounded by things that lose their meaning because they're so much part of our everyday life that we forget to focus on why they matter, and they seem like it's no big deal, when in reality it is. Just one second, Sam. So that's what he's saying. Fish are surrounded by water all the time, and they lose sight of that because it's just so natural. And he's talking about and it sounds a little corny, but it really is true. If you choose to focus on the things that matter and the things that are good, instead of choosing to focus on just the things that aren't working or are bad or are annoying or slow or repetitive, that's why this video changed my life. And it's why I have this little magnet that I have on my desk, and I look at it several times a day. The person who gave me this magnet, she was one of the teachers that taught me how to be a teacher way back, 16 years ago, when I first started teaching at Bryant Middle School. And it's a little thing, but it says, be there, play, make their day, and choose your attitude. And between this and this video, it sounds like a small thing, but it really forced me to realize if I only focus on the kids who are going to be bad or not follow directions, or I only focus on the kids who are making my life difficult, then I'm going to hate this job, and I'm going to end up regretting kind of like that life choice. So I remind myself several times a day, I'm going to choose to focus on the good kids, the ones who are trying, the ones who really are trying to make a difference, even if they don't think anyone's watching. I'm going to choose to have a good time, even if I don't feel like I'm in a good mood. I'm going to choose to remember that this matters. I'm going to choose to care. I'm going to choose to try my best, knowing that some days I'm going to fail. Some days I don't do as well. But that's really what this is all about. And on something like, and then I promise I'm almost done, on something like NaNoWriMo, it's hard to have perspective when you get far enough in, because this is a really tough assignment. This is a hard project. It's forcing you to be challenged in a way that you're not used to. But if you choose to approach it, if you choose to approach it as something that can be meaningful and is teaching you valuable skills and is making you a better human because you're learning how to stick with really tough things, that's the whole point here. So, that being said, for your You Try box, Knox and Kobe, it is a little bit problematic. You're constantly talking under your breath to each other. It's a little too much, okay? So, for your You Try box, I recommend, there's lots of different types of platitudes. We talked about breakup platitudes. There's lots of just like general real life, like here's how to have good attitude platitudes. But there's also a lot of someone has passed away recently platitudes. Little sayings that they don't know what else to say, right? They feel bad for you, but they can't fix it. So go ahead and think about your You Try box. And if you're stuck, I recommend thinking about if someone has died recently, what's a saying, a common saying, a little piece of advice that someone might say trying to help you feel better? Sam, on this one, you have to go around the inside. Yeah. Then, This vocab track could be a little bit tough, so let's definitely share our ideas. Who's got a different an idea that's not already there? June, what's a platitude? Early bird gets the worm is a very common platitude. It's not very meaningful, but it's something people say a lot. Eden. Sorry for your loss. Very common platitude. Yeah. Evie. Yep, this will blow over, right? Yep. Or it's that same kind of, like, time heals all wounds. It's that same kind of, yeah. Lincoln. Nothing's impossible. Yes, absolutely. Platitudes. Yep, Annalie. Yep, at least you're not homeless, right? They're trying to help you have perspective, but that doesn't necessarily actually make you feel better. Music. Yep, absolutely. Okay, Kaya. People go through this every day. At least you don't have it as bad as someone else. But that doesn't actually make you feel better, right? Okay, last two. Savvy, and then Emerson. Yep, Emerson. There's no I in team, yeah. Okay, so there were plenty you could steal from each other. Go ahead and turn that in, everybody. And like I said, it's a really small creative writing trick, but if you have a character who you want to show in a subtle way, Eden, if you have a character you want to show that they're kind of not that interesting, have them speak in a lot of platitudes, and that's a really easy way to show